Alrighty, in today's video, I'll be creating a character limit formula that we can eventually sort by social medium. Every social medium is different with their character limits, and so we are just going to create an automated way to know when we've gone over a certain character limit and how we can sort that out using a select property as well. Let's get started right away. I've created a character limit property, which is just a number property, a text property to type in our text, and then a formula so that we can connect the two together. Similar to other videos, we're going to be using the length and ifs formula. These are very common formulas that I've gone over in the channel, but because we are talking about character limits within text, we are going to depend on the length formula. We're going to start with the ifs function, and again, because we are creating a character limit count, we are going to be finding the length of the text. The most basic formula that we can create using this simple length and text formula is if the length of the text exceeds the character limit, we want to say, and then otherwise, if the text has not gone over the limit, we can create another outcome that we can specify and then close using the very simple ifs formula. So if the length of the text is larger than the character limit that we set, you went over your limit. Otherwise, we can say under limit as well. If we want to be exact, we can do greater than or equals. It can be exactly that same character limit if we really want. Let's take this to the next level. What we can also do is add an emoji, so we can add a colon and then type in a keyword that we like, so maybe a warning. So once we do that, we can add it here. So you went over, and let's add a character limit of 2, and let's say hey. So it looks like that's working okay. If this is 3, it says you went over your limit. In this case, because it's equal to or greater than, it's saying that it will consider 3 as still over the limit. If we don't want that, we just remove it. Now we go back to under limit. Now that we have these very simple outcomes created based on length of a text and the character limit that we can set, let's go a little further and configure by how many characters you might be going over. We want to add how many characters your text is over by within this outcome where it says you went over your limit. And if you remember correctly, one thing we can do to create this is by adding some text. Maybe we say you went over your limit by to specify the numerical character count that we've gone over by. The way we can do that is by adding and combining it with another formula that we set. And in this case, it's going to be the difference between the length of the text and the character limit that we specified as well. In that case, we have the difference between the length minus the character limit. So if we do person, you went over your limit by 1. Person is 6 letters long and character limit is 5. So we've set that up pretty fast. That is just a combination of adding that calculation and then using the plus sign to concatenate that string. So it looks like there's not a space between by and 1, so we're going to go to by, add that space. Maybe under limit is kind of misleading, so let's just make that into a thumbs up emoji, and let's change that the outcome for when you're under the limit or when you're good to go. So if I do this, we change that, person 1, you can see that we're 2 characters above the character limit, and that specifies there. That's very helpful. And now we have a very simple character limit counter that we've created with this very basic ifs formula. The next step that we can take to level this formula up is by adding a select property in which maybe we specify some social mediums. In our case, I'm just going to type in X, Instagram, and YouTube as placeholders for this character count. Maybe add a little icon to it, and so now we know which social medium that we might want to count characters by. In our case, if we wanted to create an automated way to change the character limit based on the social medium, we can create a formula that says if social medium is equal to YouTube, then let's make the character limit this. If the social medium is X, let's make the character limit this. Let's create a way in which we can change the way that formula changes. So we're going to create another formula just to make it easier on ourselves, and we are going to specify by social, and we're going to do that by starting with the let's function. We are going to do this step by step so that we can keep what we've already created and then use this later when we're setting up these variables that are specific to social media. Let's create a variable titled social. Remember, with a let's formula, you want to name a variable first before you manipulate it in its last line. And so we're going to call this variable social, which just references the social medium and the category that we're looking for. We're going to nest another ifs formula in here, which says, well, if social medium is equal to YouTube, for example, then let's specify the character count to be 100. And if the social medium is equal to X, for example, let's make it 280 characters. We can do this with all three social mediums. As you can imagine, social medium equals Instagram. The one thing to note here is the select property has to have exact matching text so that we can make these character counts come to life. If this is a lowercase t, for example, this isn't, this ifs formula is going to break, and that's just something to note when we're doing exact matching with text. Now we have all three of our social mediums ready to go, and again we got to specify character count. These are all numbers that I just found through a quick search. I think the 100 characters for YouTube is just the title. For X, it'd be 280 characters as the max for any post, and then for Instagram, 125 characters was ideal for most postings. These are arbitrary numbers, and obviously you can modify this to your needs and your social mediums so that you can make this work for you. The last thing to think about here is now that we have these three select properties toggled in a character count context, we need to think about what if it is empty. So when social medium isn't specified, then what do we do? Because we've already created this character limit property. When this is empty, we should always use the character limit property because we want to not have it empty when we're referencing character limit. So in that case, we want to say when social medium is empty, again, we're using the dot notation, dot empty, open and close. We want to use the character limit that we specified already because the social medium is blank. We added the if logic where if it is empty, then choose character limit as the character count that we specified. In our case, these 100, 125, and 280 are the outputs based on when the social medium is YouTube, X, or Instagram. And so this social variable can now turn into one of four of these variables, but only one at a time. Now that we've defined these character limits by social medium, we can think to combine with the formula that we created earlier. We already have this neat ifs formula that we've created, where if you do go over character limit, it'll also specify by how many characters you've gone over by. And otherwise, we can show that everything is okay, and that's all we have to do. If you want to go a little further and specify a range of character limits, you could also do that as well, but I'm going to keep it simple stupid here today in this video. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to copy that formula that we already created, and then I'm going to paste it within this other formula to do a few quick things. We have a bunch of error popping up, and this is one of the reasons why I like to break it down one at a time and to kind of reduce the amount of overwhelming feeling you might get when you see all this red text at once. The reason why this is happening is because we have not added a comma after the variable that we called. So we're going to add that comma. Oh, and it looks like it just fixed the whole formula for us. Although it is working properly, we need to replace the variable social that we just labeled with those four interchangeable outcomes that we just created. So instead of using character limit, we are just going to replace that with social because that becomes our variable that changes based on the select criteria that we've specified here, whether that's YouTube, whether that's Instagram, whether that's X, or whether it's empty. And then we're going to go ahead and do that character limit here. Again, we just named this variable to replace what that character limit is, and we've done so very conveniently through this let's function where we name the variable and decide what it is based on the select properties that we can configure by. So as you can see, I just switched those variables out from character limit to social, which becomes a more responsive variable that we set. And as you can see, the formula still works. Now that we have set the select property in the social mediums, and we can change it based on this, let's see how that works. In this case, because it's empty, the character limit is 5. You can tell the same outcomes happen even with this variable because we've nested that in here, where if social medium is empty, we are just going to use that character limit that we set here. Now if we change it to X, that changes completely. Same with Instagram, same with YouTube. One way we can see if this works is instead of saying YouTube is 100, let's make it 5. We just set it up so that the character limit is now 5, and because this is 7 characters, it says we've gone over by 2. Go back and change that. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with X. I'm going to just make it 2, and then I'm going to change this to X. And now because this is a 7 character text, it's saying you went over your limit by 5. So now we can see that works. Same here with Instagram. We'll make it 6. Done. Change that category to Instagram and see now that because this is 7 characters and we just changed that limit from 125 to 6, it's saying you went over your limit by 1. So if we remove this, because there's no character limit being specified, it's always going to show a thumbs up. But if we do 5, oh, it reverts back because this is not empty. And as you can tell, we've created a responsive character limit counter that we can configure to social medium and automatically populate what a character limit might look like based on the social medium we select. And we've done that through the let's function, where we name the variable and show all the outcomes that it can be, and then we just basically replace that variable with the previous formula that we created in the beginning of this video. As you can tell, if you're working with many different types of social media, this might be really helpful for you. The last thing I'll go over real quick is the styling. After any sort of quotation mark of text, you can do .style. I've gone over this in many other videos. This is where you can spice it up and make these outcomes even stronger and emphasize important pieces of text that you'd want to showcase. Because this is a property in itself, we can go to any view, we can view it, we can show it like this. You went over your limit by 2, similar to the way we have it here. This sort of shows you the power of the lets and ifs formula and how we can nest 2 ifs within a let's formula function so that we can get more from what we're trying to do. We just started with this basic formula and then upgraded it by adding some categorical constraints, where if a social medium is a specific social media channel, we can change what the character limit is. And then also by adding this character limit property, if the social medium is empty, we can always just fill it out manually, so that if it's a different type of post within a certain social medium, we can responsively configure that as well. So thanks for watching, and like and subscribe if you learned something new, and really appreciate the support. Thanks.